Greetings and salutations, all you truly beautiful individuals. It is another epi of Liga Online. Eric and Mark here with you guys for what was a kind of surprise, on paper, banger, back-to-back doubleheader matchup in the LCK. We had, the, at one time, big four, Hanwha Life, T1, Gen.G, we'll throw in Dplus Kia, all on the Rift in some marquee matchups. And I will say, despite the headliners, it definitely felt like it was a Wednesday of LCK action, and I don't mean that in a positive way.
Wow, a rare, disappointing, under-delivering day from the LCK, especially with, as you laid out, what seemed to be a rare Wednesday kickstart the week, amazing bonanza of a schedule from the LCK where you would have had our top four teams. A little bit of asterisk there, putting DK in that top four, given what we've seen from KT to roar out of the gates this split. But yes, it looked like it was going to be fantastic, and unfortunately, in different areas, both series very quickly wrapped themselves up and were decisive and left you wanting a lot more from what was the potential, I think, when you saw these teams on paper.
Yeah, and obviously, Gen.G and T1 had both bounced back after their last series. T1 had kind of smashed Hanwha and did not carry an ounce of that momentum. Oh, I take it back. They had an okay early game. They had a lead in game one. That's where the momentum ended, as this was kind of a slow pace. Didn't really have anything much happen till, a Rift Herald fight, like 15 plus minutes into the game, where Gen.G quickly turn this game on its head and don't really look back. But I'm just not used to kind of slow, not that exciting matchups between these two.
No, and you're not used to seeing Kyria get styled on the Bard styling against him. Someone else busting out that pick. It was a big day for Duro specifically, I think, when you look at this matchup and how things played out. And he really felt like the traffic guard for T1. He was stopping any type of momentum, any type of chances that they would go. He'd say, nope, halt, wait here. I'm letting my boys come on through. Gen.G, keep it on, rolling on through, keep getting this and keep getting that. It was a very good job by him, I think, throughout the day. And especially, I want to bring up that game one, and the Bard against Kyria is something we don't see very often.
And honestly, his game two might have been even better on the Nico. This dude straight up was robbed player of the match, as Chovy ended up taking it. But yeah, Duro, he got like 3 kills before level 6, and anytime you thought, okay, maybe there's an angle here for T1, oh, the Nico hasn't even ulted yet and would stomp through. But this second game especially, the amount of times you saw T1 just kind of brute force throw themselves at Gen.G and end up getting aced. If I didn't have the name tags on, I would have absolutely no inkling to think that this was T1 on Rift.
It's crazy because I think since the summer of 2023, Gen.G T1 domestically is a 19-3 ratio, which again, we head into all of these matches given the history and success on the world stage of T1 and the legacy of the players and everything else in the organization. You always head into these matches assuming, yes, this is the two Titans. We're going to get a real battle. But it isn't. It's not the way that these things have played out. And today was just another iteration of exactly what we have seen multiple times since 2023. Gen.G, in any iteration and form, seems to know exactly how to take down and pressure T1 within these series. It just so happens that the 3 wins that you look at on the side of T1, all of them were relatively significant ones to sway in their favor.
19-3. That's not really a rivalry, right? That's just kind of big brother beating up on little brother. And yes, T1 does have the world stuff. Only actually beat Gen.G once head-to-head at that world championship. But, typically, because of those numbers, T1 loses to Gen.G. You're kind of like, yeah, whatever. And absolutely, T1, much like we talked about G2 in Europe, who cares till playoffs roll around? We're not going to overreact with this team, but I will say there's some uncharacteristic yucky stuff going on. Owner, who was far and away their most consistent and best player last year, has not had a good start. In fact, has had a bad start to spring, and it was just weird seeing T1 disjointed, not on the same page. It's only Pays that's a new member coming in who should fit in seamlessly, but they just looked completely all out of sorts synergy wise, which was weird.
That's the weird thing stepping out of this one is that you're leaving this series not in the same way as you have in the 19 other losses to Gen.G, where usually there's other things that you kind of ease up on the pressure from it. But in this one, given what we saw against Hanwha Life, given what we saw in the struggles early in the very first game to start out the split, you would be looking at this series against Gen.G as a proving situation, and to not only not really match up and have anything competitive, but to really be taken to task on a lot of these things. The Bard against Kyria, again, I bring it up. That doesn't happen all the time. So again, I think there is something a little bit more in this dip in performance, specifically in this one. So going to be heavy eyes looking on T1 in the bounce back series next time.
Yeah, and it almost feels like maybe they're going to be too reliant on Kyria being the playmaker here. And one of the crazier stats with him, I know anytime you see him on Lulu, he has a career on T1, 21 and 18 record on Lulu, which, that sounds fine. It's above 50%. But when you look at the other main champions for Kyria, they're all closer 60, 70%. So I think Kyria, whenever he's not on a playmaker, it feels like T1 is more vulnerable than ever heading into this year. And again, it's only 3 series. We're not going to panic, but you combine this with how the LCK Cup ended, losing to not Gen.G, Dplus and BNK, the rest of the LCK kind of leveling up, and it's starting to be a concerning pattern for T1.
It's one of those ones where you realize the speed, the tempo of what everybody else is absolutely picking up. And if you can't, you're going to find yourself behind the pack trying to catch up situation. And with what we have seen, I don't know if that's going to be possible for this type of T1. I think today you stepped into this matchup. Again, a lot of the hype and excitement given the result against Hanwha Life, expecting that momentum. And you look at the way things went, you thought it was going to be the ruler pays showdown. We didn't get any of that. That's not how that bottom lane played out, not how this game played out. It was Duro. It was the rest of Gen.G very confidently and calmly taking this series.
You could have put anybody's game tag in the bot laners today. That did not at all feel like it was an iconic ruler versus Pays matchup. Despite that big win over Hanwha Life, now you see HLE. Listen, Kanavi was trolling, it seemed like, in the T1 series, but obviously he took that personally because he made the Rift his absolute playground on the day against Dplus Kia. Started things off with a Jarvan performance. Yes, J4, that not only did he have 100% kill participation, he did the most damage on his team as Jarvan.
This guy, I mean, it feels like if we have craps and claps, that has to be can't Navi because he can't do it. And this is can Navi because he can do it. And he can do anything on Summoner's Rift when he's playing at this type of level for Hanwha Life. You mentioned the Jarvan game and leading the damage. That I know Jarvan actually does sneaky have some of these games where he does have that type of contribution, but you're really not doing it unless you're a terror out on Summoner's Rift and really making it a pain for everybody to play against. And certainly was the experience for DK on the other side. Not really, I think, the best performance overall from Showmaker on the day.
Definitely not the Azir game.
Yeah, I was gonna say some of those shuffles looking a little less than smooth, very, very much so. So not so what you want to see from them. And then you go to game 2 though from Kanavi, and he says, "I can do something a little bit extra," and he busts out the Kazakhs, and he is even more of a terror out on Summoner's Rift.
Yeah, especially because the levels 1 to 3 are a little bit rough. You think he's going to fall off and be completely irrelevant, but that could not have been further from the truth, as of course he ends up doing the most damage again for his squad. But makes more sense on a Kazakhs, but finishing 11-3-3 on that one to obviously pick the easiest 100% player of the match that you possibly could in this set.
He had a big pop off. I think it's important. The other members, right, that we're looking at with Hanwha Life, Zeus, Gumayushi, Zeka, I think they all performed really strong as well. But really, the thing that just takes it over the top and really pushed it to being such an overwhelming series in the hand of Hanwha Life was what Kanavi was doing throughout the jungle. The Jarvan, the Kazakhs game really was that threat and showcasing that type of LPL lethality that we were waiting and knew that he could bring to the LCK.
Yeah, and this is what we have seen him do when he has two, usually three dominant laners. Zeus was incredibly dominant on the day. Zeka kind of gap showmaker, as we mentioned. The bot lane more kind of went the Dplus way, at least the Ezreal game. God bless Smash. This man was trying to do everything in his power to try and keep Dplus Kia in this game, and is really the only reason why that game went to 37 minutes.
It's one of the situations, and it doesn't obviously work in the instant swap type of thing, but you'd go, okay, well, if I had Kanavi on my squad and he was doing the Jarvan game, doing the Kazakhs game for me, and you had Smash in that bottom lane the way that he was controlling it, yes, this very much so would have been a very different series, different story, and a DK victory most likely on the day. Kanavi plays for Hanwha Life. That was more than enough of the difference, I think, today. But as well, yes, the rest of the squad from Hanwha Life coming on through. And a very controlled victory for them and a good bounce back after the T1 series.
Yeah, and now it's because it's such an easy, Kanavi played terribly against T1 and played fantastic against Dplus. You're like, that's really the only line you need for Hanwha to kind of bounce back and be like, okay, great, I feel good about them. T1, despite slapping Hanwha Life, you've got infinitely more question marks and are feeling way more sus about them.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those ones where you got to be careful, right? You got to, have that grain of salt, got to make sure that you're not overreacting, going too much into it. But it is absolutely one of those ones where I want to keep one eye open. You got to be making sure that you are aware of this, and especially if you are T1 and how you're doing it. And I understand the community reaction can be all over the place, and especially it's not really done many favors when T1 comes out with, the press conference, whatever, interviews after the match, and it is very much so the same rehearsed, rehashed type of lines about,
they look
really
so bored,
so well.
Tom and Faker. Oh my god.
It's based, again, you give credit because you got to have that type of availability and contact, but it really doesn't serve anything when it is as canned as that. So, yeah, I think you can understand where people might take it to another level, another extreme, and jump to that type of caution and concern. I think we're, easy on it with T1, but it absolutely a couple eyebells raised here, looking at what we saw from Gen.G today.
And I think it's still just, it's a little early for the T1 slump, but it changes year to year when it comes. Again, had that crazy offseason. There's a lot of reasons to not panic for T1, and it's important to say that because we know the fan base is just waiting to panic and waiting to overreact for this squad either one way or another. But how about now? These are the marquee matchups, but next on the docket, we have the actual two undefeated teams that are going to be throwing down in Nongshim and KT Rolster. That's crazy.
Which is pretty wild, but I think, again, early in the LCK split
2-0.
for this one, but excited to see this matchup at the very least because, again, KT has had this fantastic form and really evolution since that first split of the year, and where we see them now and how you envision them involved within that top tier of the LCK. And Nongshim, as people might forget, they were there. They've been involved within that top tier of the LCK in the last little bit. Yes, on the outside looking in type of situation, but with a chance against a KT and a KT that is very much so inserting themselves in that top conversation. This is going to be a fun series.
I'm just saying, more so than in splits past, there clearly seems to be this level up of the middle pack of the LCK with a lot of these teams that we have mentioned. So much so that it doesn't feel like there's going to be that easy early round of playoffs for teams like T1 to kind of warm up, find their footing, and then match up against the good squads. you're going to hit the ground running in this whatever this top 6 ends up being, and if you're not close to your best on the day, I feel like any of these middle tier teams could upset.
When the middle tier teams are getting better, more competent, stronger in how they look and can challenge these top tier teams, almost everybody wins, right? The fans, all these things, oh, they're all great. It's more exciting. Everybody except for at least one of those top teams, because that is the consequence of everybody getting better and looking stronger. Is it means they're taking one more here, one more there away from one of these top teams, and I bet you that is going to be someone out of this mix of the Gen.G, the T1, Hanwha Life, DK, KT, whoever you want to throw in that fourth position. Squads like Nongshim, like KT are hungry to throw themselves in there. So yes, very much so looking at that one with the LCK. And even further back, we've got, what is that? First stand representative, BNK need to figure it out as well. So yes, that middle pack of the LCK is absolutely approaching.
And Fearx going to be sweating because they got Hanwha next on the docket and staring down the barrel of a 0-3 start potentially.
And especially with a Hanwha Life with momentum on their side. And again, Kanavi with that type of confidence moving forward, which again, I think the biggest thing was looking at where he was set up with the strong performances from his laners on how he could then influence and really take over with his skill and aggression. Very scary when you're looking at the type of form that we have seen from BNK coming out of first stand.
And just remember heading into this playoff format, this is the weird road to MSI that's not actually a title as we combine the two splits in the LCK, but it's just top 6, and if you're not a top 2 squad, there's no losers bracket. This is like old school King of the Hill LCK. You're not getting a second life if you're a T1 or a Dplus, whoever who kind of slumped down in the standings. You lose that best of 5, you're not going to MSI. And by the way, it's in South Korea for this one, so you know these squads are going to want to represent the home country.
This is big pressure. This is big time for a lot of these organizations. A lot will be on the line financially and for pride in those situations. So very much so got to keep that attention on how things will sort themselves out here in the LCK in the next little bit.
Did have a little bit of LPL action on the day as well. Maybe not the heavy hitters, but we're seeing top esports evolve back into being one of those heavy hitters as Tien has not missed a beat since his return. But I want to highlight the two other new guys on this squad, Juan, who's replacing 369, stepping away, and Feng Yue, who was really solid in the bot lane. Despite a sloppy 40-minute, needed a couple of Barons to take down World Elite. They absolutely stomped Game 2, and Top Esports continue to trend in the right direction to being one of the main rivals for BLG.
Yes, and this is exactly what you wanted to see in the LPL is this top esports come out of the gates, this split in this type of fashion. And specifically, as you said, the new guys coming on through and performing pretty well is an important part of it, but it's about the returns. And I mean, your boy Jackie Love in the bottom lane, giving this team some fangs, some firepower, some energy in what you got going on. Cream, of course, returning back to the form that we have seen since the first split of the year, bringing that strong form from him. And even more important, the return of your man, Tien, in the jungle and what he was able to do for this squad. Absolutely difference-making and not in only compared to the terrible stuff that went on last split, which we can all very much so want to shove aside and move away from. But Tien very much so, I think, with a rebound of his own performance since the last time we saw him out. So very excited for Top Esports.
It's a very low hurdle that Tien had to get over to be better than what was last split, but he has, moon bounced ahead of that for you to be feeling good about him in jungle. And even going back to last split, I think Cream has pretty easily been right behind Knight in terms of mid lane rankings in the LPL.
Which is, again, would be one of those ones where you said that maybe a year, 2 years ago, you'd be going, what the heck happened to the mid lane pool of the LPL? How is it Knight and then the fall off to Cream? This isn't a fall off. This is a climb from Cream to get closer, to make up that gap and add more to his own skill set. And I think that, again, you don't want to get too far ahead of yourself, but he very much so has made it one of these ones where you go to a head to head. That's no longer a major weakness or a gap in your arsenal. You've got some to firepower. You've got strategies there if he's able to play. And I know that Cream has shown it so far.
And maybe a secret level up on the other LPL side of things is Invictus Gaming. Still perfect. A whopping 2-0 on the split. But now it's back-to-back series. It has not been Rookie in the mid lane. People are waiting for the Shy to come back, but it's Breathe who has stood out in the first two series. Mako is back after sitting out split one. It's kind of this mix of veteran and young talent on IG. And the Rookie thing, I mean, I've heard he's been back in South Korea, spending time with his girlfriend, easing into things for the split, but wouldn't it be the most Rookie thing ever for him to just whisper into the background and all of a sudden we never see him again?
It would be, I think, disappointing from a fan and community standpoint, but it would absolutely would be so fitting for Rookie. There always is, I don't know, not even in esports, but even in just traditional sports or whatever, there always seems to be those guys, those whatever it is about their personality where they, you know what, when it's time to hang it up, when they're just done with it, not interested, ready to move on and enjoy other aspects of life or whatever, they don't need the commotion, the celebration, any type of noise. They just want to fade away into the background and let it all go away. Could be what we're seeing with Rookie in that type of situation, but could be lured back into the team with performances like this and good signs from everything as we've seen. As you mentioned, Breathe was really kind of the big performer on the day for IG and what was able to get done strong in that top side. Mako coming back, and then you see a little bit of that effect. I think this is certainly an IG team that is maybe waking up, maybe, kind of brushing off some of the dirt and dust that had been on them in their slumber, but maybe one of the teams that could be a contending competitor here in the LPO.
And remember, IG is basically the inverse of squads like T1 and G2, right? Who can slump into playoffs and you're feeling fine.
Yes.
IG can go undefeated in the regular season into playoffs, and I'm going, yeah, still a little bit sus and don't fully believe in them.
There's always that little bit of doubt in your mind about it, and I think that comes through regardless of if someone like the Shy is there or not type of thing. Not fully ready to be convinced by it, but again, another strong performance for them and a good sign within the LPL.
Progress is there. The trajectory is on point for now. But that is it today for League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you, Stunners. Thanks for hanging out as always. Catch you on that flippity flip.